Hello and welcome to episode 252 of the Paint All the Minis podcast. We put the show together so you can have something to listen to whilst you are sitting at your hobby desk and painting your miniatures of any scale, genre or game. Our aim is to have a relaxed and genuine conversation with someone who's as involved in the hobby as you are, from any level, top to bottom, because we've all got our own unique and individual stories. Sit at your hobby desk, paint your models, listen to the chat. We really do hope that you enjoy the content. This week, I speak once more to Mr. Roger Yates of the Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy. We spoke back in episode 230, so if you haven't listened to that one, you may want to go and listen to that because this is a continuation of that chat, and we delve into what has been happening in more recent times with the Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy paint line, different shows and competitions that they've been getting involved in, and we also chat a lot about the future. It really was another fun chat with Roger, and it was really nice of him to give up another hour of his time to chat to us. Thanks, Rog. I talk about during the show, but I exclusively use the Two Thin Coats paint range now. And I wouldn't throw your current paints out of the window and buy 180 of the Two Thin Coats range. But if you are in the market for a new red or a new leather brown or anything else, or you're painting a different style and you haven't painted those colors or that style for a long time or ever, then check them out. Because I personally really like them. You know, that's not the detriment to any other paint range, just ones that I've tried, and I've never had a bad experience with any of the paints that I've tried. If you want to have a little bit of a look-see, I painted all of my Baratheons with Two Thin Coats paints, and you can check out the article on paintalltheminis.co.uk and see the results. I do a whole bunch of yellow in that, so that's like traditionally a colour that a lot of us get quite grumpy at. So you can see how my mediocre talents coupled with the awesome Two Thin Coats paint tackles yellow. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. If you want to come and hang out with us, you can click on the link to Discord that's in the podcast description. You can come and join us on Facebook, on Blue Sky. You can email me if there's any reason you need to get in contact with me. You can email me, paintalltheminis@gmail.com. And yeah, it was great to talk to Rog. Hope you enjoy the chat. That's enough of the pre-ramble. Let's go.
Paint all the minis. Paint all the minis that you can. And when you paint your minis, listen to that podcast with Dan Adams, that is.
What's happening? We have sort of a problem here. You apparently didn't put primer on your latest batch of models you bought. Yeah. See, we're putting primer on all the models now before we paint them. Did you see the memo about this? Yeah, if you could just go ahead and make sure you do that from now on, that would be great. And I'll go ahead and make sure you get another copy of that memo. Okay? Yeah.
So hey, I'm here again with Mr. Roger Yates. How's it going, Roger?
Not bad since last time. All good. Very busy, but great.
Have you noticed there's a few more people kind of looking at you on the street since you were on the show last time?
Fortunately not.
So you've been busy. You mentioned you've been crazy busy over the last kind of few weeks. And is that typical? Do you find that you have busy periods during any one year, or is it kind of steady busy the whole time?
No, it's peaks and troughs. We're normally really busy doing all the tutorial stuff for the academy, and that's taking photographs or whatever. But this year we had the UK Games Expo, which is our biggest show of the year and one of the biggest gaming shows in the UK. I think they had like 85,000 attendees over the unique attendees, I think, over the 3 days that were open. But not only that, the team at Transatlantis Games we make the paints with, they launched their Kickstarter at the same time. So yeah, it's been really busy.
Good. It's good to be busy, and I guess you enjoy the kind of, being able to focus on different things. So it's kind of like a busy, which is tiring, but it's also kind of good to be busy, right?
Yes, it's good to be busy, especially when it's like Duncan has his own business. You put in that extra effort. Anyone who's owned their own business will know it's 24/7. So you want to make sure it's as best as it can be. So yeah, it's nice to be busy, but you do need that little bit of a break. Just to slow down a little bit, which is what we got this week, which is lucky. Yeah.
What do you do?
Tutorials this week.
Yeah. What do you do to relax? What do you do to chill out? Have you got anything outside of the hobby that you do?
What do I do to chill out? Well, I play in a band, so I do that every now and then. I play music a bit. I love reading law books. Grabbing rule books. I'll try and find unknown games or small studio games and looking at those. Looking at the books and the rules and the stories and the lore and stuff like that. It's kind of what I do a lot now.
Yeah.
And then every now and then I'll look for miniatures that are interesting. I love going on eBay and looking for something that's a little bit unique or a little bit old that you might not see. And then, Dunk's obviously a huge fan of Old Hammer, massive Old Hammer fan. So, I'm always on the lookout for him as well. So he likes to go and buy old miniatures. So,
yeah.
And then every now and then, if I get the chance, I've moved house a while ago. So a lot of my painting stuff is in storage in the studio right now. Mm-hmm. And because I don't actually have a place to go paint at the moment, so I've got to set up an area there where I can actually paint, because the next thing on my list is to teach myself how to airbrush. So I've got an airbrush, I've got a compressor, but it's a magic art. It's a dark art, I'm afraid. I haven't quite figured it out, but I'll get there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Have you picked up any kind of obscure rule books or some really interesting rule books recently that you want to give a shout out to?
I found one. It's old. It was called simply Fantasy Wargaming, and I found it in a charity shop, which we have a lot of those over here in the UK. And obviously, because we live in Nottingham, which you got Games Workshop, you got Warlord, you got all these other companies, lots of war gamers in this area. So the charity shops can sometimes prove a gold mine for finding the older stuff. And I found an old book which literally just called Fantasy War Games. It was from late to mid 80s, and it was quite fascinating to see. It was really complex rules and stuff like that, and I'm not going to pretend to understand them all, but it was really complex stuff. But it was designed for you could use any proxies, any miniatures you wanted, really. So you could use Workshop miniatures or Citadel, and then whatever other companies were making at the time. And it just had a real mixture of photographs of all these different miniatures around. It was quite interesting.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the best sort of books I've found, because I've never seen it before, never heard of it before.
Yeah,
so that was great.
Yeah, I picked up a game recently that and I'd never heard of. It's called Fantaside, and it's like a fantasy skirmish game. And it's actually written by Rick Priestley and Andy Chambers, but I'd never heard of it.
Wow.
Yeah, and it kind of comes with its own. It comes with its own deck of cards. I ain't dug into it yet, but it's a kind of like a strange fantasy world with these kind of little warring tribes on this planet. So I need to dig into that. But it's really cool when you find those. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, one of the best ones we found as a studio recently. There's two. There's a company that makes, I think it's called Goblin King Gaming. They make Moonstone.
Yeah.
That's really good. The miniatures are so full of character and really fun to paint. And then the other one is they're a bigger studio now, but it is a Parabellum Games, a Conquest.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love their stuff. Yeah, I mean, we know those guys quite well. We've got to know the team and the owner, Stavros, and all those guys really well. We'll see them on the circuit and always chat, and we'll do stuff with them. But I really like the fact that they've just gone and done their own thing. They gone and made this, they made this fantasy world, and their story is very interesting as well. And they're based in Greece. Yes. But their story is really, really interesting, how they started, and it was basically started through, the guy started it, was not happy that they killed the old world, and basically was like, well, I'm going to do my own thing, and he just went for it, and, that was it. And he started, and I mean, they make great plastic miniatures, full of imagination. Their version of orcs with the dinosaurs are great, really colorful to paint. So, people are looking for fun projects to paint, there's that. yeah, they've got so much really good stuff, and then they're just releasing stuff, and all hard plastic as well, which is seriously impressive.
Yeah, it's a really good game too. So the first edition was co-written, or at least heavily influenced by Alessio Cavatore, and it's got some really interesting notes in it. It's like it's one of the only games that I know that has got like a progression element where you don't deploy everything that you have at the start of the game. You have like you have light troops which start the battle, and then you get heavier troops that deploy later in the battle, like higher up the battlefield. And so you kind of like, do you try and win the early battle with your light troops? Do you kind of try and just hold and then kind of win it late on with your heavier troops that come in later? And so there's not very many war games that I know that have that element of certain units deploy certain times and the heavier troops come later. And it's really, I've seen it in a few video games before. There's a RTS game that I play with different phases where better units come in later phases in the game. So that's interesting too, man. So I'm guessing, with things, the way things go when people work in the industry is that their personal hobby kind of falls by the wayside. So is that true of you? Do you still manage to play many games? Do you still manage to paint things for fun?
I don't play as much as I used to. I dabbled a bit in 40k. Old World I used to play a bit. Age of Sigmar I gave a go, but it took a bit of getting used to, because I was at workshop when they did when they blew up the Old World and they created the Age of Sigmar and stuff like that, the World of Sigmar and that. The realms, the 8 realms, I think it is. And I remember it was quite a change, because suddenly you've gone from blocked units on trays to almost a 40k-esque type of game with single miniatures that you move around. But yeah, I don't get to play as much because I don't get to complete armies as much anymore. It's every now and then if I see a nice miniature, I'll be like, oh yeah, I've got to paint that. So what's grabbed my interest at the moment, I love Conquest. I'm busy working on a few things on that. I'm trying to just like paint schemes, just to keep myself going. And then I like obviously like Trench Crusaders really caught everyone's imagination, and that we obviously working with them with the Dark Arts paint set, with the Kickstarter, and they've been good. So they've sent over a couple STLs for us to print off here that we could try and stuff like that. So we printed a few off, and the whole team have had to go and they have to go painting them and stuff like that and see what they're thinking, and they love it. So everyone likes a bit of real grim dark horror, don't they? And Trench Crusaders is pretty dark.
Yeah, well, let's start digging into that, because in the last show we intentionally didn't talk about their paint range. So in the first episode, I think hopefully people listen to, I mentioned it in the intro that go back and listen to the first one. But you created your own channel, you created your own painting academy, you painted, you're doing many tutorials, but then a paint line came along, and it's awesome. I use it exclusively now. I kind of steadily, as the waves came out, I kind of steadily kind of transited from my different kind of paints that I used into Tooth and Coach range. So how did that come about? Is that something that was initiated by you? Is it something that you were contacted about? Like, what was the initial steps to that?
So I'll tell you how it worked. Was when Duncan and I were planning on setting up the academy, we had a plan to keep going in the forward with it, and what our goals were. And one of the goals was to have a hobby range, right? And we had a 5-year plan for that. We thought we'd try and see if we can get it done within 5 years, depending if the website and the channel was successful or not. And then about a year in, we were working, I won't name anyone, but we were working with a certain paint company at the time, and we were going to do a project with them and stuff like that. And then we got approached by Bob Watts, who is an industry veteran. Bob has been involved, I think he ran Games Workshop North America for a while. He ran Sabretooth Games, and that was bought by Games Workshop. He was heavily involved with Wizards of the Coast, just loads of jobs. He's a fascinating guy to talk to, full of great stories. But anyway, he approached us with a proposal, and Duncan and I read over it, and we mulled over it for a couple of days, and we decided to go with him because we had the opportunity to create a paint range from scratch. So it could be paints that Duncan really liked to use, and I like to use whatever. Just what we thought was make a really good paint. But of course, working with the other company, they already had a set standard, so we couldn't do anything with them. So they then approached us when they found out we had a project, and then we just parted ways because we felt like we wanted to go with a new startup. Even though it didn't have any experience in it, we just felt it was a great chance, an opportunity to try and create something new. And we started working on it. So we developed 60 colors that we thought were the most useful colors, which is our wave one. We thought they were the most useful colors a person would need to get you started. So we had some great metals in there. We had, your primary and your secondary colors. And then we went with the triad system, which is obviously, it's tried and tested through decades of people painting miniatures or whatever, which you have a dark color for your base coat, a light and mid-tone for your layers, and then you have a highlight color. And it's just easy for people to pick up and start painting. They don't really have to, think too much about what paints they're going. Just grab a triad and they know that it's going to work. And the reason we did that was because we know our customer base is often starters or intermediate painters. That's who our customers and people that we make the videos for. We don't make them for advanced, really high-end advanced painters because we can't teach them anything. In fact, they could teach us stuff, So we aim for the beginners and the intermediate painters, those that just want to push their painting skills a bit further. So the triad was an obvious choice to introduce that into the range. And then we had the washers. So we worked with the guys at Transatlantis Games, worked with Bob and a guy called Peter. We worked with them for quite a few months developing that, and they then did all their stuff in the background. So once we decided on the 60 colors, we then went and we started testing, and we had to test a lot. Your different, what they call bases, which is your how do I say it? It's like your paint, like your paint without color in. It's the base, and then you'll start adding colors and pigments to that. And we wanted something that would flow really well and settle nice, but would also cover well. So it's a lot to ask from a paint manufacturer to come up with that. So the things like the leveling agent and all that had to be quite high, higher than other manufacturers and stuff like that. So, we didn't realize, but it was quite costly to just most expensive thing to actually put in a paint. On average is something like a leveling agent. And then once we got the color sorted and we're happy with the paints, we made a few changes, and then they wanted to launch their Kickstarter, the guys at Transatlantis Games. So we designed a few miniatures and characters for that, and we made a few things, and off we went. And we were very nervous on that day when the Kickstarter launched because we'd never done one before, and we didn't know how the public would they be interested or anything like that. But it did phenomenally well, and they made their goal in like 10 minutes or something like that. And then of course it shot right up to eventually settled over $1 million, which at that time was the biggest paint thing on Kickstarter. So we were completely flabbergasted by that. We had no idea. We couldn't even put it into words. We didn't know. And then of course it was like, how on earth do you manufacture this now? So the guys at Transatlantis Games, they used to manufacture P3 paints back in the day when it was still War Machine, and that's been taken over by somebody else now. But they had a small paint factory there, and they had to obviously rebuild their paint factory and put more modern machinery in and change it all for the sheer volume that was required. And then it just went from there. And then of course they got distribution in the US with Asmodee, which is the biggest games distributor in the world, I think, one of the biggest. They approached us and they wanted to distribute in North America, so Bob went with that to get the paints in as many stores as possible, and it just went from there. And it's been moving forward ever since. So we're more than happy with it, and I think the guys, our partners at Transatlantis Games, I think they did a cracking job considering they were really up against it for the first one. There were lots of lessons learned, mistakes were made, but they really worked hard to fix them as quick as possible. Nice. We just had no idea it would do that well. We just wanted to make the minimum and not have egg on our face. But luckily it did better than that. So we're more than happy, and they've done a great job.
That's really cool. So as you kind of, were approached and you kind of agreed to go, I really like that sentiment, and I really like that idea, is that you wanted to create something that was new and create something that was different and create something that was yours, instead of just putting your name on something that was already established. That's really cool. I really like that.
That was the thing. What we didn't want to do is just get a paint off the shelf, put it in a bottle and slap our name on it. That was a big no-no for us. We wanted to develop it from the ground up. And, the Bob was completely open to that, and he just said, just make the paint you guys want to make. and we did. And
Nice.
we thought we ended up with a pretty good product. We were happy with it in the end.
Yeah, no, I really like them. They're really good. They're really good. I'm painting with them now.
Yeah.
I'm painting some hair.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that's cool. So how involved with you? How involved were you in terms of because what makes paint good? You obviously got a certain amount of liquid, a little bit like blood. You've got plasma, which is like the kind of the liquid medium that it sits in, and then within the blood you've got kind of different cells and platelets and proteins and stuff. So how deep did you go into that? Were you just kind of like, I want it to be kind of like this consistency and these kind of colors, and you just practice with it, or did you go deep into the did you learn yourself so that you could better influence the process?
Not as much. Dunk did a lot of the testing because he paints every day, all day.
Yeah.
And I've never known in all my life a more prolific painter than Dunk.
Yeah.
When I worked in the workshop, he would paint at work, and he'd go home, and so we'd have lunch. He'd pull something out of his bag. He'd paint something he was working on at lunch. Then he'd paint videos in the afternoon. And then in the evening, he would be painting, say, Napoleonics, because he wanted a break from workshop. So he'd start painting, say, something like Napoleonics, which he loves.
Yeah.
Doug's probably had a paintbrush in his hand more than most people have. It just doesn't end. So, he knew what he wanted. And with my limited experience, not as much as his, clearly not nearly as much, I could put in what I also thought. And that was also from feedback from times working in Games Workshop when I used to... when I was in what were they called, the central operations, I helped set up their paint manufacturing thing there. So I had a bit of an idea of that, of how what paint should behave like. Not as much as Dunk and other people that are much better than me at it, but I had an idea. But I also have a bit of an art background, so I understood. Dunk and I would have good conversations about what colors to do, and we knew from making hundreds and hundreds of videos and all that kind of stuff on what the main colors you use are in most miniatures. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Games Workshop miniature or a Parabellum Games miniature or Warlords miniature. There's often colors that just are across the board. You use for every miniature range, whether it's science fiction, fantasy, horror, modern warfare, whatever it is. So we narrowed that down to 60 colors. In fact, we thought we'd do 30 colors first, and Bob was like, no, why don't you guys think of making 60?
Yeah.
If you guys want to do 60, let's do 60. So we were like, oh God, yeah, we'll do 60, because it makes it much easier then to find. It's very difficult to narrow it down to 30 colors for your first launch. And then, we just kind of stuck with 60 ever then, except for the Dark Arts launch, which we've just done. I think it's on his last day today. It was exciting, but you can tell when a paint is good and when it's bad, even if you've only used it a little bit. Even if you're not experienced, you can just tell. It might be too thick out the pot. So, some of the colors we got, like white, is very, very difficult to make a smooth color. Oranges as well. In fact, orange is arguably, in my experience, is probably the hardest color to make cover well. Mm-hmm. And it's weird because you can get red to cover well, and now they've got yellow really nailed. You can get yellow, used to have the reputation of being difficult, but yellow now is really easy to do. But you got a really strong red, a really strong yellow. You need to think logically, if you put those two together and mix it to make an orange, you're going to end up with a thick paint. It just doesn't work that way. So oranges were a tough one to do, but we got pretty good at it. In the end, we found a way that kind of works, and it's the one where if we could just fine tune it a bit more in the future, once the technology evolves, because it's always evolving, then we'd look at that again. But
nice.
The paint manufacturer we worked with, we went up to their labs, and we were telling them what we want, and they bring up bases, and we'd sit there with models and we'd paint, and and then we'd kind of get down to what it was, and then we start working on the colors, and we'd just adjust them every so slightly, a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, maybe add some greens or blues in it, just to change the hue a bit. And we just kind of went that way, and then they'd send us samples, and we just paint and paint and paint. And Doug did a lot of that stuff in his spare time. Like I said, he's got a paintbrush in his hand permanently, So there was a lot of that stuff, and then I'd do my part by double checking it or sense checking it, and then we'd give feedback on it, and I paint some miniatures and check what it's like and things like that. So because it's nice to have different points of views. It's not really fair to put all that pressure and all that stuff on Dunk. It's a lot to do, and he's going to have his way of doing it. So you want as many people as you can, just to take a look at it and get their thoughts on it.
Well, let's kind of chat about it. So as it stands right now, I think there's 180 colours, including kind of really bright colours, glazes, washes, metallics, all the usual ones, and in 3 waves. And then also you just mentioned that there's some grim dark colours that have just kind of come through. But let's talk about you just general feelings. Like, did you ever think that you'd be sitting here with a giant paint range? Because a giant 180 is big. There's a lot of paint.
It's big,
right? So did you ever think that you would be the co-producer of a giant paint range, and how do you feel about that?
It's fantastic, to be honest. It's hard to quantify, if that's a word. It's like, it just is right now. It's like we're looking at the paints, how we can make them better, how we can get them into more people's hands. It feels surreal at times, because like I said, we started our little venture in my dining room. And we had this kind of plans to make things work, and we did the academy, and we did all that. We got the paints and stuff, and we just didn't realize that we would get the paints this quick. So sometimes it's you step back and you go, wow, we've worked on this, we worked with great partners in bringing this to fruition. So it's exciting, but at the same time you're like, you're trying to get it in people's hands, and we believe in the product. We did, Duncan and I, we said from the very beginning, the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to put our name on a piece of junk. Because it's our name, it's our reputation, and that's important to us. So we're going to try and make the best thing we can. And if we make a mistake and maybe something goes wrong, at least we tried, and we always did it with the best intentions. It was never just to rip people off or anything like that. It was always to try and make the best product we can. Because we know what reputation's important, and we know that we want people to enjoy and trust us, that we've really put our heart and soul into making something and making it the best we can for them.
So let's talk about some USPs. Let's talk about some USPs for it then. So I'll tell you a couple of things that I really like about it, and then maybe you can pick out a couple of things that you really like if I don't mention the same thing as you. So all the bottles are dropper bottles, which are awesome. So they really work.
I'll tell you a story about that.
Go ahead. Cool.
So we knew we were going to do the paints, and years ago I ran a poll on our YouTube channel in the community section, because you can run polls there. And I said, what's your favorite kind of bottle for paints? And I had glass bottle, like the old Humbrol ones. I had the paint pots, like Citadel ones. We had dropper bottles, like Vallejo and Army Painter. We had what was the other one we had on there? A plastic kind of dropper bottles, and they're not quite like the old P3 bottles, if that makes sense. Where they have the cap on and stuff. And overwhelmingly, it was dropper bottles. Overwhelmingly, more than 50% of the vote was dropper bottles. So it was quite like, okay, well, people want dropper bottles. We'll do the dropper bottles, and then that's where we went down that route.
Nice.
So that's how we got to there, which is quite interesting.
You'd listen to what people want and give people what they want. It's strange how that happens. You listen to people and then you give it them and then they buy it. It's so strange how that works. But I really like it because it kind of works well with my wet palette. But I also have like a bunch of old bases, and so sometimes if I'm not working on a wet palette, I use like the upside down of a base, like the interior of a base, and just kind of like drop a little bit of paint into there. That really works. Each bottle's got like a individual like ball bearing in, so when you mix it, it's kind of got a really good mixing thing as well, and that was a really intentional choice as well, right?
Yes, it was. We wanted to stick an agitator in there because we know that paint over time splits, right? It just does. If you have a can of paint at home or whatever in your garage, you're always going to get that, and paint just splits. The heavier items go to the bottom and the lighter items float, right? Just basic science. So you want to be able to mix them, especially metals, because it's got fine like aluminium flakes in there, very, very fine aluminium flakes. So you always see metals will kind of split. But of course, with a dropper bottle, unlike say for instance a Citadel bottle, it's very easy to stick a dropper agitator in there. So we decided we wanted to do an agitator in the bottles if possible, and of course Bob was accommodating to it. And in the first wave, we did we took 2 agitators in that were little like skulls, for a little bit of fun. But then we found they were too light, so we got I think it's a 2 or 3 mil or 4 mil, I can't remember now. 316 stainless steel ball bearings are now in all the dropper bottles, so it'll never rust because it's 316 stainless. So that just sits in the dropper bottles. In fact, we've actually got dropper bottles in our warehouse that we've stuck with water. I say warehouse, it's a storeroom basically. I know why I call it a warehouse. But we stuck their droppers in there, and they've been in there for about 4 years now, and none of them have rusted. We put the pewter skulls in just to keep it tested. Yeah. We check them every so often to see, but we've never had any kind of rust on there.
Yeah.
So
So those two aspects that I really like. I really like dropper bottles. I really like the ball bearing in there, and I also like how I'm not sure if this is just a Kickstarter thing that I got, but with the waves that I got a really big, nice color wheel that's kind of up in front of me on my wall, and then also there is a paint comparison chart as well. So if people are using other paints and looking to kind of see how the paints stack across certain colors, so if like you got a GW color and then you're looking at the two thin coats and you're thinking, well, what translates. You've also got Army Painter, and then you've also got Vallejo too. So that's a really nice touch as well. Is that you can see how the paints kind of transfer across different ranges. That was obviously by design, because we wanted people to be able to paint along with us. But obviously in our videos, we're gonna use our own products, right? Because we have to show people we believe in them. So if people are still using Citadel or they're using Army Painter or whatever their favorite brand is, they can at least still follow along in the tutorials. And over time they can, maybe if they want to give it a go, they know what color that's going to be very, very similar. Not all colors are color match, because we wanted to just try and make our own colors, right? But it's the closest match or something very similar to those specific brands that you might want to try. So sometimes we might look at a color, let's imagine one from Citadel, we really like it, but we think we might want to add a bit of blue into that, or a bit of green, or a bit tint of red, or a bit of white or black, or darken it down or whatever. But every other color, we just decided, we need a brown, let's work on a brown, and we mix one up, and and we try and work on that, and we want a bit lighter, a bit darker, a bit colder, a bit warmer, all that kind of stuff. It was great, good fun. But the color charts and all that was done by the guys at Transatlantis Games. And they did a cracking job on that. So, that has proved really useful as well. In fact, we should actually put more of them and take them to shows, because we're always getting people asking for them. Right. You got those color posters and stuff, but they were meant for the Kickstarters. Because it kind of works as like a color wheel anyway. Like it's not an exact color wheel, but it kind of really helps just to kind of see opposite colors as well. So like you work with yellows and oranges, then you can kind of see what the opposite side. And so that's really good. And so just before we talk about like how the names got made and how much kind of say you had in some of the names, like what would you say that you most like about the range? I've mentioned a couple of things there, the dropper bottles, the ball bearing. Is there something that jumps out to you as like something that you really like about it?
I like the way the paint feels. I like the fact that you don't have to do multiple layers to get really good coverage. And I also like the fact that they're not streaky, if that makes sense. So because of the amount of leveling agent in there, so they do flatten out really nicely. I'm really, really proud of the metallics. We worked a long time on getting those right, and we ended up with something we think is really nice, and it's quite fun to actually think of new metallics to create, but it's the metallics I'm proud of. The dropper bottle, I designed the label for the dropper bottle. I never designed a label before, and I was like, what would be a cool label, just something a bit different that's not just black and white print. We wanted it to really pop, so we worked on that and got that nice. But I think the colors as well, just in the ranges, I think you can pretty much paint nearly anything you want to now. With that range of colors. I mean, you can always add more. Like if you want to go down the historical route, for instance, you could get uniform matched colors. If you want to go down there. But I mean, some paint companies have got, like AK and those companies like that, Vallejo have got, God no, they've got hundreds and hundreds of colors on there. So it's. That's what I think I'm most proud of. I think the triad system, we don't claim to invent it or anything, but we've made it useful for people and to remind them of it again. And it's one of the best pieces of feedback we always get whenever we meet people at shows or wherever. Is I love the triads. It just makes it so easy for me to be able to pick up and paint. I don't have to think about it. I can just grab that triad and I know it's going to work. And so that's what I'm proud of. For me personally, I love the way they feel, and I love the metallics. And I think they're really great.
That's cool, man. It's just such a great story to kind of do that, and like you said, that you had that mentality of saying we want to create something ourselves. We don't want to attach to something. We want to create, and that's awesome. And yeah, the tried system again. I echo that. All the things you said, I echo. And I'm not affiliated in any way, shape, or form. I just think they're really good, really simple, really easy, and I really enjoy using them. So thanks, you two, and all the people there. It's awesome. What about paint names then? Because coming up with names for paints is difficult. So what did you do? Just get a paint name generator and get it going, or what?
No, Duncan and I just thought of them ourselves. So there was a bit of an argument, not an argument. There was a bit of a conversation, like, do we name them as pro artists would like them named, like light blue or whatever. And we felt that it would be more fun to kind of put their own name on it, right? Because we're involved in science fiction and fantasy and creativity and all that sort of stuff, and these worlds that people like to live in and go and, I say live in, but they like to be in these worlds in their spare time, and that. So we just thought it would be fun, to make our own names for stuff. And if it works for someone like Games Workshop or Army Painter and those kind of guys, and even Vallejo and all of them, then Turbo Dork, all these wonderful companies, then it's like, let's just go and have fun with it, right? This is our paint. We want to put fun names on it. Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started to make names, and it's quite hard to get started. But once you start, if you just take it from there and you just have fun with it, and you got to be careful you're not, copywriting any names or other paint names. We've had to change a few. We didn't even realize that somebody else had that paint name, so we'd always go and do a sense check on it. And thesaurus.com. Is your best friend when naming paints. I can tell you that for sure.
Nice.
Looking at the thesaurus. Oh, I need a word for blood. All right, I don't know if we've used blood already. Let's go and have a quick look, for instance.
So do you have a particular favourite?
I like Death Reaper was a nice one. This is one of my favourite colours.
Yeah.
That's a nice one. That's because it's just a cold, dark black, like dark grey. It's just colder kind of suits. Surcoat Silver was fun because that's obviously our mascot. It's old Surcoats. What else? And there's loads.
Troll's
there's a couple
Green. That's my favourite.
One.
I think.
Yeah, Troll's Not Green one is fun. Yeah, that was a no-brainer. That kind of reminded us a bit of the time of late 80s, early 90s Games Workshop type of naming convention. It's just fun. We did a bit of a tongue-in-cheek one where we did Bits O' Tin.
Yeah.
Instead of the old tin bits. So we thought that was just a homage to that. And then Goblinoid Green was a fun one to do. We had a lot of people asking us for that kind of bright green. So we thought, Goblinoid Green would be quite a fun one. And then we had one that was completely unintentional, but when we announced the paint, everyone was like, oh my God, I can see what you did there. Duncan and I were like, we don't get what they mean. But our white was White Star. And everyone's going, I see what you did there. It's like White Star. And we were going, wait, what? We didn't realize. What's the brightest thing in the universe? It's a White Star. Let's go with that. And then only afterwards, when people were mentioning White Star, we were like, oh God, it is close. We had no idea. We didn't even cross our minds until it was pointed out.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then Doom Death Black. One of Dunk's friends they were playing a campaign years ago, and he was the villain, right? They were doing a wargaming campaign, like started with a skirmish thing, and then they get bigger and bigger as their armies built over time. And this guy had a thing called Castle Doom Death, and we just stuck with us, and we just thought that's great. We should pay homage to Dunk's friend and name the black paint after that, because it was just tongue-in-cheek and fun, right? So we went Doom Death Black because it's a deep dark black like that just shouts Doom Death, right? So we stuck with that. But there's so many. I mean, you just come up with colours all the time. You're trying to think of names and things like that, and you look around you in the studio for inspiration, or you look in books, or you just look outside and something will suddenly strike you.
Yeah.
So
as we talk today on the 10th of June, you mentioned that the Kickstarter is just coming to a close for the grim dark colours. So what was the thought process behind that, and why that type, why that feel, why that different direction?
So we had a lot of people contacting us, asking us to do what you call grim dark style colors. If you imagine looking at someone like John Blanche's artwork from the it's from the early 80s and 90s, those vibrant reds, those yellows, dirty tobaccos, and things like that, and it all stemmed from people starting to get into Trench Crusade. So that started to really take off well over a year ago. People were getting interested in it, and it was starting to grab people's attention and stuff. And we had people saying, "Oh, you must make some colors for this and do that and all that." So we thought, okay, well, if people want us to do that, we'll take a look at it for sure. So Bob and the guys from Transatlantis Games, they wanted to do a Kickstarter in the year, and they were like, "Yeah, we wanted a small one." So we said, "Why don't we do?" We've got a lot of people asking us for this. Why don't we do it? I know it's niche, but people are really into it, and people like the term grim dark style painting. So we just developed it from there, and went with it and stuff like that. Yeah, and that's basically where it came from. And again, we had no idea how it would do, and it's gone better than we thought, because again, it's very niche. It's a very niche style of painting, but people really enjoy it, and we enjoy painting in that style. Myself, I like painting a bit in that type of style. I love weathering on miniatures. It's my favorite. I can't wait to get to weather a miniature. Like I don't care about the other painting parts. I want to start chipping and weathering and putting enamels on and stuff like that.
Nice.
But it just felt like it was the right time.
Yeah.
And then the guys at Transatlantis Games, and we spoke with the guys who run Trench Crusade, and they were happy to work with us on it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been good.
Nice.
We're really happy with it. We hope people like it. But it's the same quality paint we've been making. It's fun to make some really dirty metals and some inks as well.
Yes.
Old school inks, which gives a very different flavor to it. Really, really good for an airbrush. So I've been told. Like I say, I'm not really good with an airbrush. I'll probably end up spraying myself in the face with it if I tried it, but as I learn. But it's just gives a different flavor to it, and there's so many ways you can use the inks as well. You can use it for fine lining, they're good. Dunk likes to mix the inks with his paint, just for wet blending. It can help, so you can get a more vibrant, oversaturated color at times, which is quite good for grim dark style painting. So yeah, there's so much to it, and we just went with 30 colors because we didn't want to do 60. We thought 30 was just a good number. But again, people just asked us to make it, and we thought it was an opportunity to go for it, so we went for it.
Awesome. And what about do you see any other kind of gaps in there? Because there's a lot of like basic material direction you could go. There's like powders, like pigment powders for weather in there, and different effects. Is there anything else that you can talk about for the future, maybe?
The possibilities are almost endless that you can do. We are working on a couple more things with the guys from Transatlantis Games, in the background to try and expand on the hobby range. But you're right. There's so many things you can do. It's anyone who's been in the hobby will know that you've got, like you say, you've got sand, you've got tufts, you've got cork rocks, you've got glues, you've got spray paint, you've got brushes, you've got palettes, you've got wet palettes, you've got, we work with Sarissa Engineering, and they make our paint stations, laser cut paint stations and that, which are really good. People like those, but it's a great way just to have all your stuff on that. There's so many things you can do.
What would be like your wildest dream? Like if you could just be like, I want that. Is the paint the biggest thing, or is there like some little doodad that you'd love to see? The kind of Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy, such and such a doodad.
I think the paint is probably the pinnacle. I think for hobby materials. I think it's, how do I say it? It's difficult to make paint. It's a long process to get it right. Like you can go and you can buy, say, hobby clippers. You can get good ones made. You can go buy those off the shelf and you can shove a label on, or you can spend a fortune trying to design one. But they work so well at the moment. You don't really need to go and reinvent the wheel.
What about the Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy painting slippers? What about that? Some nice little silk slippers that you can put on as you're sitting at your painting desk. You ever see them?
I'll leave that one for Dunk. Socks could be good, but
that's cool, man. But you have got
so much you can do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
sorry.
And it's no, it's cool, man. It's really good. Yeah, you're right. there is so much that you can do. And I think you mentioned it a couple of times that, being willing to listen to people that are passionate, people that have got the experience that can take it a different direction. You mentioned Trench Crusade there. They've been doing awesome stuff for a couple of years. You mentioned you mentioned Transatlantis Games, so it's good to kind of reach out to these people and to kind of work together. I've been doing a big thing over the last couple of weeks at work about collaboration and the importance of collaboration, where different people work together to create something which those people individually wouldn't do to such a level as quick, so it's great. So and there's also something that you've worked with recently that's not paint related. You mentioned that you collaborate with a different group and you collaborate a different product that isn't paint. So what is that product, and why were you proud to partner with us?
So there's a company in Australia run by a wonderful guy called Max. It's called Tabletop Tech, or Meki, and they created a system to transport your miniatures it's really highly engineered, and I don't know the details of it, but how it works, but it's really clever, and it uses these rubber O-rings, and he's got 3D printed slotter case, so the whole system's modular, so you can just chop and change however you want to build your figure case. So 2 years ago, we were introduced to him at UK Games Expo, and we invited him over to the studio to see what he had. And Duncan went on holiday, I think, straight after. So I was speaking to Max, and he showed us the case, and he gave us a demo and everything. And I was really interested in working with them with that case, because I could see they had something special. So it might not be to everyone's taste, but I think as a startup business where he was really trying to make something extraordinary, I thought, you know what? Let's see if we can help this guy, because, and I don't mean, how do I say help, not financially or anything, but we'll let him license our brand, exposure, as long as we can, again, start to work on the case with him and stuff like that, and start to design it with him and add things on and all that kind of stuff. And, for over, just over a year, we worked on the case together, back and forth, coming up with ideas, getting samples, changing things here or there. We got a decent hobby case. And then they ran a Kickstarter, which did really well. And that wasn't just our hobby case, that was their whole range. Mm-hmm. They got incredible things on there. You can take like the front of the case out, put in a Perspex glass, got LEDs in there, and you've got a wonderful display piece for your painted miniatures. Mm-hmm. So it's all wonderful things like that you could do. So we made a few more changes to the hobby case, and then one of our teammates, one of our guys who works here called Joe, who does does our social media and our events, he said to the guys at Tabletop Tech, he said to Max, well, we're going to UK Games Expo, why don't you guys put the case in for best accessory? And anyway, they got Max to do it. Max sent in the case, and it won best accessory Judge's Choice Award, which we're really, really proud of. And we're proud of Max for doing that and creating something really good. People are now starting to take notice of it. And it's a great case, it's so well made. It's so well engineered, and we just, we'll work with them as long as we can, and hopefully they really, really succeed, because I think they've got a really interesting and good product line.
That's cool, man. And there's lots of choices in that whole genre. So what's it called again, and where can we go to get our peepers on that and maybe make a decision on it?
If you go to Tabletop Tech, .com, probably, I think it's that off the top of my head. You'll probably find that stuff there. You'll find all the figure cases, and you can build your own figure case there.
That's cool.
And that's awesome. Games. So, it's really good. One of the biggest problems was people transporting their monsters around, right? You can't fit them in a normal figure case. You can carry them in, say, a old school, really useful box and things like that. But this thing just locks it in place. And if you are a high-end painter and you really want to look after your miniature that you want to transport to, say, painting competitions and things like that, then these cases are really great for it. And we're not affiliated with those, we just think that they're good. What we're affiliated with is the actual hobby case itself.
That's awesome. And just before we pivot and talk about UK Games Expo, what about actual games? And do we see a time where there's a Duncan Rhodes Tooth and Coats fantasy skirmish, where maybe, I don't know, two painters are battling out against, they select some paints and some washes, and the paints and the washes go up against each other on the tabletop? Are we that far or not?
I'll say watch this space.
Yeah, ooh, exciting.
There we go.
Well, let's talk about UK Games Expo then. You mentioned that you just recently come back from that. You mentioned that it's a really busy time. You mentioned so many people that go and look. So what is your experience of that? What did you take with you to set up? What was your intent, and how was that experience for you?
If no one's ever been to the UK Games Expo, I advise you just to go and have a look. It's mainly board games, card games. War games is a big thing over there now. It's everything. It's an amazing show. You won't see it all in a day. There's just too much. And all the big guys are there. The only one that wasn't there was Workshop this year. I'm not sure why, but they weren't there. But otherwise, everybody else was there. And it's had 85,000 or so unique visitors over 3 days. And it's just massive. But we set up a stand where we were selling the paints. We introduced box sets for the first time. So we introduced a starter set, which is 12 select paints in it. We introduced a sci-fi set, which is 12 colors that are great for getting started in sci-fi type models. And then we did a fantasy set, which is great in, painting all things. And we had no idea how they were going to go, right? And we sold out really quickly. Everything we had. We just like, oh my God, we need more. How do we get more? Yeah. We were selling the Surcoats and the Gizmo miniatures there. We have event exclusive miniatures we take. Can't get those ones anywhere else unless you did the Kickstarter. But people really wanted them. You didn't back the Kickstarter, so we said, we'll do a limited run and we'll sell them until they sold out at shows. So we're almost out of those. And then we sold stuff for Sarissa. So we had paint racks and we had painting stations and stuff. And then, of course, the best part of all of it was just being able to chat to people. Chat to people about their hobby, their experiences. And we met a lot of Academy members there, which is always great. And then we met lots of industry people as well, which is also great. People wanting to do work with us or things like that, or just catching up with old friends you've not seen in a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. But by the end of it, all our voices were croaky, our feet were dead. We wanted to sleep for 3 weeks, but it was worth every second. Amazing show.
How do they compare or stack up to something that you've been to in the US or maybe Essen in Germany or anywhere else around the world?
Yeah, so we've not been to Essen. Duncan and I haven't been there, but we are planning on going. If not this year, probably next year, even if it's just to go and have a look and then see if we can do something there. I never went to this year's Adepticon at their new venue, but it's very different. It's more like Essen than it is, say, Adepticon or the LVO. They've got some gaming. They've got competitions going on, mainly card games. We think wargaming is big, but card games are a whole different. They're so big. You don't realize how big it is until you actually go to one of these events and you just see how huge that industry is. Board games as well. That was great because there's so many independent board game manufacturers, that are just producing some really, really creative stuff that you've never seen before. There's small miniature manufacturers there. There's obviously you've got all the paint guys there, the hobby product guys there. It's always good to catch up to them and chat to them. And then, but it's the customers. That for us is the best part. Is just chatting to, people who like the DRPA and like what we do, and or asking hobby questions, and you can help them out and stuff like that. That's probably the best part for us.
Yeah. And so for people who've maybe not heard of the UK Games Expo or heard of it but not any details, or maybe people that don't live in the UK that may be looking to combine a trip to the UK on holiday with it, like what time of the year is it and whereabouts is it?
It's at the end of May, beginning of June, and it's just outside Birmingham, so it's right in the central England, basically. There's an airport that's close by. It's got trains that go to there from all around the country, so it's very accessible and easy to get to. It's off the main kind of parts of the main motorways systems or freeways, so it's really easy to get to. And I think it's the UK's biggest convention centre, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's so big, the NEC. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's cool.
Yeah,
and so 3 days. Yeah, 3 days. 4 days. 1 day to set up. So Joe and Jack spent the Thursday getting there, setting up, and then we then worked. All of us came to go work.
Bernice, who's my wife, she looks after us here in the studio. She does all our accounts and all that sort of stuff. She was just manning the fort while we were working at the show. And then we had 2 hours to break down. They give you a whole day to set up, and it's like, all right, we've got your money, now get out. 2 hours. That's the NEC guys. It's like, oh my god. But we also ran the Circo's Painting Masters there.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. So that's one of the first one. Is that the first painting competition you've seriously been involved in?
It's our third one.
Okay.
We've done 2 smallish ones. We did. Our first one was at the London Grand Tournament, which is where we really cut our teeth on. Mm-hmm. We had 70 to 80 entries for that. We expected that because it's a tournament. It's not really a convention, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that we cut our teeth on that. So we learned a lot. Then the next one we did was right down south, in Bournemouth. I think it's Bournemouth. I might be wrong. I think it is Bournemouth. Yeah, it's the our beachhead thing, which gets about 3,500 visitors, and that's over 2 days. So we had a stand there, and we were running the painting competition at the stand. But the UK Games Expo was a massive coup for us, and I have to give all credit to Joe, who works with us, because he saw an opportunity where they approached us and were like, hey, can you tell us how to run a painting contest? And we were like, hey, we'll run it for you. Yeah. And Joe went with it, and he's done a cracking job. So, we got that set up. That was in one of the upper halls, and we had over 700 entries.
Wow.
So it was huge. Yeah, it was huge. We had 2 great guys called Harley and Shem who helped us out on the stand. They always volunteered to help us out. They're cracking chaps, hardcore hobbyists. They love the hobby. They live and breathe hobby. So we had that. We had 2 guest judges. So it's myself and Dunk doing the judging. Mm-hmm. But we wanted some real high-end painters to give us a hand, because we knew this was going to be a really, really big one, and we just couldn't get through it ourselves. So we got Mike Anderson, who's won 19 Golden Demons, which is he's so good. He's ex-workshop sculptor as well, and we know him from back in the day, and he volunteered to help. So we were so lucky to get him over. And we had another guy called Sam who works for Transatlantis Games, and he's a studio painter, and he won one of the high-ends. He won a medal in one of the high-end Spanish competitions. I think it's called San Sabino, something like that. I always get it wrong, so forgive me if I've got that wrong. Mm-hmm. But he's really good at bust painting. So yeah, we got them out and we judged them on the Sunday. Chose our winners, which was really hard. It's so hard. You've got to really go down to the smallest details at points, like, is the paint smooth on the toenail, for instance, right?
Yeah,
and I'm not even kidding. It's stuff like that, because the standard is so high.
Is there like a rubric for it about what you're specifically looking for, or is it just how you feel when you look at the miniature?
It depends on the judge. Like, some will look at it a bit more technically. Mm-hmm. I like to look at it from what emotional feel I sometimes get out of it. That's what grabs my attention first. From there, we'll then put it under lights, and then I'll look at it. Start looking at the technical skill of it. You start looking at if you've been in the miniature industry for a long time, and like myself, I've been in it for 26 years now. Mm. And you're around painted miniatures, especially things like heavy metal and painting competitions, you get to know very quickly what a really good paint job is. So because you're looking at them all day, every day, all of the time, and often on camera, looking at them under a microscope, really. Yeah. So you get to know what is good and what skill is. So yeah, you want something that just maybe looks a little bit different. Maybe it's painted very well. Sometimes, how's the basing is very important, because the basing frames a miniature, it can elevate it. Mm-hmm. We had one guy who did an incredible job on a miniature, and we wanted to make him a finalist. Unfortunately, he didn't paint the base. It was just black, and it was the only problem. But we still gave him. We had a good chat with him and told him all this, and he was over the moon. We liked his miniature and stuff. But the guy who won was Callum Franz, mm-hmm. and he did a Fallout squad. It's some robots, right? Yeah. And every single one of us we felt that this potentially could be the winner. Okay. There'd have to be something wrong with it for it not to be. Yeah. It's the scaling he got with the weathering, for instance. It's the layout he had. The base was very different. It felt like a bit of graphic design in the way he did the sand. Everything felt planned and for a purpose. And on top of that, his painting was immaculate. It was so smooth. It was so full of detail. You could just look and you'd see something new. And we brought that to the table with what we thought was going to be the grand champion. And all of us, it didn't take us that long, in all honesty, to actually go, you know what, we think he's earned it. Not only did you get an emotional feeling of joy out of it, and wow, this made me really happy to look at that, but it told a story, and it was just meant to be a squad. But every little detail he painted, everything was just spot on. You could see it was just a purely passion project that he loved doing, and he put his heart and soul into it. And for us, that was a really grand champion.
Yeah, I bet that's a really good feeling to be able to pass on that feedback to everybody, regardless about whether they get on a podium or get close to winning. Just people that have shown that effort and people that have shown that care to enter the competition, just be able to interact with it,
absolutely,
give them a little bit of feedback, but then also to kind of give that winner's trophy or the rosette or whatever it was. I bet it's a really nice thing to do. I just think about sometimes, if not that I ever would have done, but if I'd ever been a doctor, you're seeing people when they're at the worst, right? You're seeing people when they're sick. You're seeing people when they're not feeling very well. But to judge a competition and to give someone an award, that's when you're seeing people at the best, right? And to be able to share that joy with them, right?
Yeah, it was great because he had no idea.
Okay.
And he won gold for squads, and he was really shocked. He was shaking. He just didn't think he had it in him, I think.
Yeah.
And then when we announced the winner, I remember watching him. And Dunk was doing the announcements, and myself and Mike were handing the trophies out. And it's a big glass trophy, it's we get made for this, especially for the event. And when the moment he said robots, I saw him. He sort of staggered back. I think he was just absolutely shocked. And then we announced him, and he came up, and he was just shaking. He was just so happy.
That's cool, man. That's brilliant.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
But he deserved it. He just heart and soul. That's what won that one.
Nice, that's awesome. That's really cool.
And so extremely well painted.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's the main part. It's got to be that. But are you going to kind of expand and develop that? Are you going to go back and do it again next year? Or are you going to kind of seek to
we'll do it definitely next year. We might add a couple more. Some of the feedback, we learned a lot from this one. We've never done anything this big before. So we have learned a lot from it, which is great. So we'll probably add in another category or two. And then we'll see how it goes, and hopefully more and more people enter. Nice. I'd like us to have like 1,000 entries, which could potentially be possible, because now people know the event is there. We just want people to come and have fun and enter. And like I say, it's not necessarily whether you win in that. It's just, again, it's that fun of just taking part and just seeing all the incredible miniatures on display. And we're probably gonna. The Squires, which is our under 15s, some of the stuff in there was incredible. But we're thinking of doing a very special award for the younger painters. Yeah. People maybe 10 years and younger, so we might do a special award for them.
Yeah.
Because it's the jump from a 10-year-old painting to a 15-year-old painting is huge. Yeah. So we're going to probably add in a mini Squires and do a trophy for that. So just to encourage the youngsters to continue painting and have fun, because that's what the hobby is, isn't it? It's just about having fun and relaxing.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think it's kind of closes a circle. I think it's totally natural that you would have a painting competition and all that kind of stuff because of the things that you do and the painting academy. It's like kind of the very fibre of your being is to encourage people to pick up that. And if there's one thing that's missing, it's that face-to-face meeting people. So to have that kind of painting competition, and the word competition suggests that it's highly competitive, and it is in some ways. But I think just kind of getting together and just sharing and just saying, hey, like these paints or these tutorials or whatever it is brought us together, and you can kind of just get out your house and go and meet other people that are doing the same thing as you, but in their own little house, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Super cool.
It felt like just a natural thing to do. Yeah.
So as we kind of close out our second conversation, is there anything that you'd like to bring up? Is there anything that you've been waiting to be asked but I've not mentioned? Is there anything else you want to bring up before we wrap it up?
No, I think you've covered everything. I just hope people have enjoyed it and found out some information that they might want to know, or how we do things. And everything we do is always for the it's for the viewer, it's for the customer, if you will, the fan or whatever. We're trying to make the best thing we can for them, no matter what it is we do. We always that's what it's about for Duncan and I. That's our driver, is to try and make the best product for the people, if you will.
And it comes through. It comes through, mate. It really does. Like I said, I mean, I'm not affiliated in any way, shape, or form, but I really enjoy using the paints. It's simple, it's easy, and I've never had any dramas. And you see sometimes other people, they maybe put their names on a paintbrush or they put their name on something, and it just doesn't really stack up. But it really does. There's a lot of substance behind it, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, and a lot of graft, and a lot of guile, a lot of experience, a lot of connections. It's you don't just kind of wake up on a Monday morning and say, oh, I'm going to throw some paints out on Friday. There's a lot of work that goes into that, mate. So thank you for all of that. It's been a pleasure to speak to you a second time, and I'd be delighted to speak to you again in the future if there's a few bits that kind of come around that mean we can have another conversation about stuff. But as we kind of think about you and your longevity, are you going to get some summer holidays in? Are you going to kind of get some time to relax and reframe and refocus stuff?
We've got some planned holidays. I think the team have earned it, definitely.
Yeah,
they've all worked hard. We've got a small team here that helped make everything happen. And like I said, Duncan and I started off by ourselves, working out of my dining room. But as we've expanded and tried to grow, we've brought in some great people that have come and helped us. We wouldn't be where we are without them. Simple as that.
Awesome. All right, mate. Well, it's a pleasure to speak to you. Fantastic, and thanks a lot for all you guys do. It's really great. It's really
thank you.
A deeper and more it's a really deeper and more enriching hobby with you guys around. So all the very best for the future. Make sure you have a nice, great summer holiday, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Speak to you again soon. Have a great one. Cheers.
So there you go, 252 palindromic podcast number, all wrapped up there. Thanks a lot once more for listening. If you're still listening, I'll say thank you to you this time first. I usually say thank you to the guest first, but I'll say thank you to you. Yes, you, specifically you. Thank you for listening to this episode. We really do appreciate it. That's what it's all about. Also, thank you to Roger for coming onto the show. It would have been pretty boring if it was just me asking questions and then silence for a few minutes in between. So thank you to everybody for listening and for being involved in a podcast this week. No hobby stuff occurring still, although I'm in that whole last couple of days of the holiday before you go back home and you're back to work. I'm in that whole no. I love my job. I really enjoy my job. It's something I really do. I'm very fortunate to have the job that I do. But also, if someone gave me a choice of staying on holiday but continuing to receive my salary or working to receive my salary, I'm going to be choosing the holiday. So I'm in that kind of oh no, I'm going to go back to work kind of a period right now. But it'll be fine once I get back, and it'll be fine once I get into it. But what I'm most excited to do is getting back to my hobby setup. So getting back painting. I've not been able to paint because obviously been away for a significant period of time. And getting back to playing as well, and I've been thinking about my hobby purchases for the next hobby year. I like to plot out my hobby purchases so that I don't overbuy or buy things that I later regret. So I've been putting some thought to the hobby 12 months ahead. And I really want to round out the Walking Dead All Out War. Having spoke to Ronnie last week, and had the the re-release of the Walking Dead All Out War stuff. I wanna get that stuff. Because I've got a really good setup with my post-apocalyptic stuff. And also having spoken to Mr. Jordan Heckman, he's going to be coming up on the show soon. He was a very early member of Paint All the Minis. He was on one of the episodes 250, A and B. He has released his own zombie apocalyptic game, along with Will Rahman Daltrey has got his Hope is for the Dead. There's a couple of newer zombie games that I'm really interested in. So I wanna do that for the next 12 months, I think. So I'm gonna keep on doing my Song of Ice and Fire guys, but as a little bit of a sorbet to cleanse the palate between courses, I can maybe do some Walking Dead zombie guys. And I've also got a Zombicide version, a Zombicide special game. Dude, I completely forgot the name. Is it like Night of the Living Dead? I think it's like an old school movie, Night of the Living Dead, right? Or Night of the Walking Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead. The Zombicide, makers of Zombicide did a special edition of that movie. So I've got a whole bunch of zombies, got a whole bunch of survivors. So with those 2 new rule sets, I think it'll allow me to delve back into that zombie world. And there's loads of good zombie games. The Walking Dead All Out War, as I mentioned in Ronnie's show, really, really good. Last Days is really good. There's a lot of really good zombie games, so I might get involved in that. Just painting zombies is pretty good. Painting zombies is pretty cool. And also Here's Negan. So if you can find any of those games that are pretty cheap on the second hand, Here's Negan especially, it's a pretty good self-contained game, but it gives you a whole bunch of human survivors, but it gives you a whole bunch of zomboys as well, which is pretty good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back home, getting to the hobby desk and getting back with that, listen to some audio books. And yeah, interested to see what you guys are up to. I want to delve into the Discord and give some people a Discord shout. There's been a little bit of an uptick on activity in the Discord server. We have a section that's called Stick a Fork in It, It's Done. So I'm just going to scroll through a few of those because there's been some people that have been posting pretty regularly with some awesome miniatures. Mr Late Night Painting, he has been doing some individual figures, like kind of fantasy figures with lots of armor, lots of stripy trousers, lots of non-metallic metal. Really good. Mr John Dawson has been painting some great stuff with Trench Crusade. He's been doing all sorts of weird and interesting models. He's been doing like a giant, it looks like an undead sniper guy with crazy long arms. He's done that quite a few times now. He's also painted like a headless model with like some sort of totem coming out of its neck, and it's painted in like a blood style. Lars Gottlieb has been pretty prolific with his Blood Bowl miniatures and different things. Yes, loads. There's so many things that are in there, and it's just been great to see different people that have been contributing to that Stick a Fork and It's Done. So if you're interested in seeing really good painted models and just people completing stuff, what I always like about the Discord server the most is that it's just people genuinely hobbying and sharing, and there's nothing contrived about it or like superficial or artificial with it. It's just a whole bunch of people that are just hobbying and sharing that, but sharing it for pure and correct reasons. I think all of us have probably been member of groups on different social media settings where it seems to be like the people are trying to gain attention as opposed to just genuinely sharing what naturally occurs to them. So it's really cool. Mr. Snacklewolf also has been doing some kind of like the angry displaced guys from Lord of the Rings, the kind of they took our jobs guys, where Rohan kind of kicks them out. It's the Two Towers where Saruman sends them to go and kick up a stink. So yeah, it's been really cool. So if you are a post Rambler and also a Discord member, thank you for the interactions that we've had over the last weeks and months, especially since I've been away from my hobby desk. I've been kind of living my hobby life through you guys, just seeing what you guys have been painting, because I literally haven't been painting anything. So yeah, come swing by the Discord server if you're a post Ramble and you haven't already. It might not stick, and that's not a problem. It's not a requirement for you to post a certain amount of times during any one given week. Some people come and stay, some people come and leave, and all those things are totally fine. But what I like most about it is that there's no, like I said, it's not contrived, it's not artificial, it's not for any other reason other than we're just literally looking to hang out with each other and share what we've been doing with other people, and it's really cool. So that is enough of the post ramble. I hope that you guys are well. I hope you guys are on an even keel, and make sure you reach out to your group, make sure you reach out to your friends. We live in this world where we've got access to mobile phones and text messages and all that kind of stuff, but sometimes we don't reach out to people enough. So take some time over the next few days to reach out to someone and just say, hey man, how's it going, thinking of you, or hey man, how's it going, just checking in, making sure you're okay, especially friends that you've not heard from a while, because we've never got any idea about what other people are dealing with, and you might be the bright spark of their week just by reaching out and saying hello. And it's a nice thing to do, and it's nice for people to do that to you. So yeah, if people do it to you, repay the compliment, and if people don't do that to you, don't just sit there and wait for it. Reach out and connect with people, because that's what it's all about. So until next time we're together, keep painting.